Hello, my name is Radhakrishna. I am senior lecturer in chemistry working at Government Polytechnic College, Gadwal. In the last class, we have seen the concept of equivalent weight and we have worked out a few problems on equivalent weight, also on the normality. Let us try to review once whatever you have learned before proceeding further. Okay. Here in this say what is equivalent weight? Equivalent weight is the mass of the substance that can react with 1 gram of hydrogen or 8 grams of oxygen or 35.5 grams of chlorine. Okay, that is called equivalent weight, and equivalent weight is calculated differently for different substances. For acids it is different, for bases it is different. Equivalent weight is calculated differently for acids, bases and salts. The equivalent weight of an acid is defined as the ratio of molecular weight of acid to its basicity. Basicity of an acid is the number of replaceable H plus ions. That is, on ionization, the number of H plus ions it provides, an acid provides, is called as its basicity. For hydrochloric acid, it dissociates into H plus and Cl minus. Its basicity is 1. H2SO4 dissociates into 2H plus and SO4 2 minus. So, the basicity of sulfuric acid is 2. Okay. Likewise, the equivalent weight of acid is defined as gram molecular weight of acid divided by the basicity. Okay. Now, moving on to the base, equivalent weight of base. Equivalent weight of base is also defined in the same way, ratio of gram molecular weight of base to its acidity. Okay, to its acidity. So, when you talk of equivalent weight acidity of a base, the acidity of base is number of hydroxyl ions it releases. One molecule of base releases on dissociation or ionization. For example, NaOH releases only one hydroxyl ion, its basicity is 1, whereas calcium hydroxide liberates or ionizes into, provides 2 hydroxyl ions ionization. So, its basicity is 2, while aluminum hydroxide gives rise to Al, dissociation to Al3 plus and 3 OH minus. So, its basicity is 3 obviously. Okay. Basicity, the equivalent weight is calculated as of a salt is calculated as gram molecular weight of acid and total negative charge or total positive charge. Either negative charge or positive charge we take, and in a neutral molecule always the total negative charge is equal to the total positive charge and vice versa. So, it does not make any difference. Okay. So, this is how we calculated equivalent weights. Then we moved on to, on the basis of this, number of gram equivalents is equal to weight of substance by gram molecular weight, gram equivalent weight of the substance. That is the number of gram equivalents. Okay, formula for. Okay. Then we moved on to the normality. Normality is defined as a number of gram equivalent weights of solute dissolved in 1 liter of solution. Number of gram equivalent weights of solute dissolved in 1 liter of solution. The units of it is denoted by capital N. Okay, we call it as a normal solution. It is okay, normality. So, normality units are number of gram equivalents per liter of solution, gram equivalents per liter, simply putting. Mathematically, the formula to calculate for the calculating normality is equal to number of gram equivalents divided by volume of solution in liters. But we have just seen that number of gram equivalents of a solute is equal to weight of solute divided by gram equivalent weight of that solute. So, incorporating or substituting this into the normality formula, we get that normality is equal to number of gram equivalent weights divided by the weight of the substance divided by gram equivalent weight of the substance into 1 by volume in liters. Okay, 1 by volume in liters. To get use formula where volume is given in the milliliters, the formula is normality is equal to weight of the substance by gram equivalent weight of the substance into 1000 by volume in milliliters. Okay, 1 by volume in liters or 1000 by volume in milliliters. And we have worked out quite a few problems on the normality. Okay, now we will move on to the last topic and most interesting topic in the solutions, that is colloids. Okay, that is colloids. At the end of this lecture, student will be able to answer or he will learn what are colloids. He will be able to know types of colloidal systems based on the phase. The 3 phases of matter we have, solid, liquid and gaseous. So, depending upon the phase of the phase, okay, colloidal systems we can see different types of colloid systems. We will also classify colloids based on the affinity between the solute and solvent or dispersed phase and dispersion medium. And we will also try to learn about the different applications of the colloids. Okay, we will also try to learn about different applications of the colloids. Okay, colloids, say mixtures, they can be there you can have 3 types of mixtures. Okay, they are suspensions, colloids and true solutions. Suspensions are those mixtures which we can see with the naked eye. The particle size is very large and we can see with the naked eye. Okay, a colloids are where the particle size varies from 1000 angstrom units to 10 angstrom units. Between 1000 and 10 angstrom units. These colloid particles we cannot see with the naked eye. Okay, suspensions are heterogeneous mixtures. Colloids are also heterogeneous mixtures. Okay, then the third mixture is true solutions. A true solution is a homogeneous mixture of 2 or more components. Okay, we cannot see anything in the true solution, neither solids nor dissolved solutes nor solvent. Okay, solvent particles. Okay, solutions are homogeneous throughout. So, colloids lie between the suspensions where the particle size is very large and we can see with the naked eye. It is thoroughly heterogeneous. Whereas a colloid is a substance, colloid is a system, colloidal system is where particle size remains is in between the particle size of true solutions on at one end and the suspensions at other end. That is, the particle size diameter remains between 1000 nanometers to 10 nanometers. Okay, that is the colloid substance. Colloid. A colloid is one of the 3 primary types of mixtures, with the other 2 being solution and suspension. The solution is true solution is homogeneous, suspension is very large. A colloid is a mixture that has particles, diameter of the particles ranging between actually 10, but okay, he gave us 1 and 1000 nanometers in diameter. Above 1000 nanometers it is suspension, below 1 nanometer particle size, that is a true solution. True solutions are absolutely homogeneous, whereas colloid is heterogeneous. Suspensions, we know very well, they are absolutely heterogeneous. You can see with the naked eye also. Okay, so a colloid is a mixture that has particles ranging from 1 to 1000 nanometers in diameter. Yet they are still able to remain evenly distributed throughout the solution, colloidal system, Okay, that's about the introduction of the colloid. Okay, Many things that we come across in life, they are all colloids only. Okay, you can obviously see as we move ahead, you can see uh, colloids. Just as in solution, like solute and solvent, the particulate component typically present in a relatively minor amount is called dispersed phase. The substance or solution throughout, okay, which the particulate is dispersed, is called as a dispersion medium. See, it needs a little explanation. I tell you, we are quite familiar with the solute and solvent in a solution, right? Okay. For example, if you dissolve 10 grams of sugar in 100 ml of water, okay, this 10 grams of sugar is called as a solute and and the 100 grams of water is called solvent. You are quite aware of it. In the same way, in the case of colloid solution, colloids, okay, the smaller component which is dispersed, which is spread all over, that is called dispersion, okay, which is dispersed in the medium, okay, in the medium, that is called as a dispersed phase. The dispersed phase corresponds to that of a solute in the solution. Likewise, the medium in which this dispersed phase is spread all over, that medium is called as a dispersion medium or continuous phase. It is also called a continuous phase or dispersion medium. So, dispersion medium is like your solvent and dispersed phase is like your solute. Both put together, dispersed phase and dispersion medium put together, they constitute a colloid. Okay, they constitute a colloid. Understand? Okay, so colloid dispersed phase can be compared to that of a solute in a solution, whereas the dispersion medium can be compared to that of a solvent in a solution, Okay. And the characteristics of colloids are the dispersed phase particles, colloidal particles are often electrically charged. The colloid particles in any one system have charges of the same sign. This helps to keep them dispersed because particles containing like charges repel each other. See, we are able to see each other. You are able to see my presentation. You are able to see the movements of my hands, the way I am speaking, my face, everything. Okay, things are very clear between us. But at this very moment, if I can darken this room without any light entering and switch on a torch light, okay, in the path of the torch light, if you watch at the right angles to the path of the torch light, certain things moving. We have all experienced this. Is it not? Yeah, these particles are dust particles floating in the air. Okay, these are dust particles floating in the air. They don't usually settle down. They keep on floating in the air like that forever, almost forever. Okay, they keep on moving in the air. They keep distributed in the air. So, even though we are able to see each other, the whole room is filled with dust particles. These dust particles, dust in the air is a colloidal system. Here what happens is these dust particles don't settle together because all these dust particles carry the same charge, either positive or negative. For example, if you take smoke, the carbon particles in the smoke, all of them will carry negative charge. The air in which these carbon particles are floating in the smoke, okay, smoke consists of these unburned carbon particles, soot and your air, they are floating in the air, right? The medium of the air that carries opposite charge. Since these particles are carrying the same charge, if they come nearer, they repel each other. Okay, since they repel each other, the system becomes stable. They will not come and form larger aggregates. Okay, and they remain minute particles themselves because they repel each other and That is how the system is stabilized. The colloid particles will not precipitate down under the gravitational pull because of this, because all of them will carry the identical charge, okay, and because they carry similar charge, they repel each other. This gives them the stability they have, okay. That's about. So the medium in which so all the dispersed phase particles in any colloidal medium system, they carry this identical charge. Because of this identical charge, these particles repel each other, okay, they just repel each other, these particles. So because of the repulsive forces, they remain forever as minute particles only, they will not come together to form larger aggregates, okay. If they form larger aggregates, they come under the purview of gravitational pull and they settle down, and the system is ruined, colloidal system is ruined, okay. Other examples of colloids are your milk, all milk products, curds, paints and emulsions. All emulsions are example of colloidal system. Let us see the classification based on the physical state of the colloidal system, okay. So types of colloids. This types of colloids is classification is based on the physical state of see, in the solutions also we discussed 9 types of solutions based on the physical state of both solute as well as solvent. Likewise, here also we will see the physical state of solution and physical state of dispersed phase and dispersion medium, okay, dispersed phase and dispersion medium. See, if the dispersed phase is liquid, dispersion medium is gas, that is called a liquid aerosol, okay, that is called a liquid aerosol, okay, liquid aerosol. Examples, mist and spray are examples of liquid in the gas. Liquid is the dispersed phase, gas is the dispersion medium, okay. And if solid is dispersed in the gas, dispersed phase is solid and dispersion medium is gases, dispersed phase is solid, okay, it's called as a solid aerosol. These are all sols, they are called as usually, okay. Smoke is smoke as well as dust, they are best examples of the solid in gas, okay. Next, dispersed phase is gas, dispersion medium is liquid, gas in the liquid, it's called as foam, okay, it's called as foam. The example is its denomination is foam, okay. Foam on beer, sparkling wine, cream, all these are examples of gas in the liquid. Foam on the beer, sparkling wine, sparkling of wine, these are all examples of gas in liquid. Then liquid in liquid, they are called as liquid emulsions, they are called as liquid emulsions, okay. And examples are milk is a liquid emulsion, vinegar, mayonnaise, cheese, all these are cheese, not cheese, okay, milk, our paints, liquid paints, they are all emulsions, okay, liquid emulsions, liquid in liquid, okay. Next we will see solid in liquid, solid dispersed in the liquid, it's called sol or gel, okay, sol or gel. Your skimmed milk, paints, pudding, jelly, whitewash, all these are examples of solid in liquid, okay. Gas in the solid, we call it as solid foam, that phase is called as solid foam, okay. Ice cream, sponge cake, all these are examples of gas in the solid. Liquid in the solid, it's called as solid emulsion. Butter and cheese are examples of butter and cheese, these two are the examples of solid emulsions, okay. And next, solid in solid, it's called as solid sol or solid solutions. like metal alloys, some metal alloys such as steel, duralumin, etc. They are examples of solid in solid. Okay. So, let us see once again. There are depending upon the physical state of dispersed phase and dispersion medium, we can have different types of colloids. They have got a variety of names as well. Okay. If liquid is dispersed in gas, it is called liquid aerosol. Examples are mist and spray. Okay. Likewise, if gas is distributed or dispersed in the liquid medium, it is called as foam on the beer, bubbles in the sparkling wine, etc., whipped cream. Okay. Next, liquid in the liquid. Okay. Liquid dispersed in the liquid is liquid emulsion, milk, mayonnaise. I forgot to mention one thing. Solid in the gas, solid dispersed in the gas, it's called as solid aerosol. Examples are smoke and dust. Okay, both are the examples here. Solid in the gas, and next, solid dispersed in the liquid, it's called as sol or gel. It has got both the names, sol or gel, when solid is dispersed in the liquid medium. Okay, whitewash, skimmed milk, paints, puddings, etc., jelly, all these are examples of solid dispersed in the solid phase, dispersed in the liquid medium. Okay. Gas dispersed in the solid medium is called solid foam. Okay. Ice cream, sponge cake are examples of this. Liquid distributed in the solid medium is called solid emulsion. Examples are our butter and cheese. They are examples of solid emulsions. And solid distributed in the solid is called solid sol or solid solution. Some metal alloys and steel, etc., duralumin are the examples of this. Okay, examples of this. Next, we'll move on to classification of colloids. Okay, the types of colloids. Now we'll move on to classification of colloids. Okay, classification of colloids. Okay, classification of colloids. Colloids can be classified based on the affinity between, okay, dispersed phase and dispersion medium. Based on the affinity between the dispersed phase and dispersion medium, you have got two types of colloids, lyophilic colloids and lyophobic colloids. Lyophilic colloids as well as lyophobic colloids. Lyo means solvent here, philic means loving. Okay, lyophilic colloids are those where there is lot of affinity between dispersed phase and dispersion medium. Okay, dispersed phase and dispersion medium. So here we will see that the dispersed phase is in the lyophilic colloids, the dispersed phase has a high affinity for the dispersion medium. There is a lot of affinity or attractive forces between the dispersed phase and the dispersion medium. Dispersed phase and dispersion medium in the case of lyophilic colloids. Whereas in the lyophobic colloids, the dispersed phase has a very low affinity for the dispersion medium. Okay, dispersed phase has a low affinity for dispersion medium, whereas in the lyophilic colloids, as the name itself indicates, there is a liking between them, there is a favorable interaction between them, there is a lot of affinity between the dispersed phase and dispersion medium, whereas in the lyophilic colloids there is very little interaction between dispersed phase and dispersion medium. Okay, lyophilic colloids can be formed by direct mixing or just by heating. So if you take the dispersed phase in fine powdered form and add to that that dispersion medium like any liquid, okay, and shake it for a while, you will get the lyophilic colloids, because there is a lot of affinity and lot of interaction and attractive forces, a sort of bonding also between distributed in the between the dispersed phase and dispersion medium in the case of lyophilic colloids, whereas it is very difficult to prepare the lyophilic colloids because they are very hard to be formed, prepared. They cannot be prepared directly. These have lyophilic colloids have to be prepared by very special methods, okay, very special methods. These lyophobic colloids have to be prepared by drastic measures, whereas lyophilic colloids can be by simple methods, simply by shaking or unheating together the dispersed phase and dispersion medium. Lyophilic colloids are formed, whereas lyophobic colloids are, it is not that easy to form lyophobic colloids. Lyophilic colloids are reversible in nature. The formation is lyophilic colloids is reversible. For instance, you mix some starch in water, okay, some starch in water and shake well, a lyophilic colloid is formed, okay, lyophilic colloid is formed. If you evaporate that water, the starch separates out, okay, the starch separates out, water will go away if you evaporate the water. But if you add the water again and shake a bit well for a while, again the lyophilic colloid turns into colloid. That is why we say that lyophilic colloids are reversible in nature, they are reversible in nature, whereas lyophobic colloids, once the colloids, the dispersion medium and dispersed phase separate out, simply by mixing again the dispersion medium and dispersed phase, you cannot get back your colloid. Since there is not much favorable interaction between them, so they are very difficult to be prepared. Lyophobic colloids are very difficult to be prepared. They are not reversible colloids, okay. By simple means you cannot regain your colloidal system, so we call them as irreversible colloids. They are called as irreversible colloids, okay. Next, lyophilic colloids are quite stable and not easily coagulated. They are very stable, highly stable, and they are not the coagulation means the separation of a dispersed phase and dispersion medium. For example, you take milk. In the milk, what happens? The milk solids are distributed throughout the milk. It is an emulsion. Emulsion is also one kind of colloid we discussed, okay. Emulsion, milk is an emulsion. But when milk is very hot and if you add some electrolyte like lime juice or salt to the very hot milk and agitate it, the solid and liquid phases will separate, okay. So commonly we call it as milk has broken, okay. But actually scientifically there is separation of dispersed phase and dispersion medium. The milk is stable, it is a sort of lyophobic colloid. You cannot again get milk back from the coagulated milk. This breaking of the milk or, okay, is called as scientifically it is called as coagulation. Scientifically it is called as coagulation. So it is not, you cannot regain milk from the coagulated milk. Once it is coagulated, it is an irreversible process, okay. So lyophilic colloids are quite stable, not easily coagulated. Coagulation means separation of solid and liquid media is called coagulation. So lyophilic colloids are not that easily coagulated, okay, whereas lyophobic colloids are not that stable, they are unstable and they are easily coagulated even by adding a small quantity of very small quantity of electrolyte, suitable electrolyte, okay. what does this electrolyte do is it usually neutralizes the charge present on the dispersed phase. We discussed that colloids are stable because all the dispersed phase particles carry identical charge, the same charge, either positive, be it positive or be it negative. So, they carry the identical charge. Okay, since they carry identical charge, these particles will repel each other and they don't come together. Okay, but when by adding these electrolytes like alum, okay, this charge can be neutralized. This charge can be neutralized, and once the charge is neutralized, they come nearer to form into larger aggregates and settle down. In the case of lyophilic colloids, the colloids distributed phase particles invariably carry the same charge. All particles will carry the same charge, whereas in the case of lyophobic colloids, they may or may not carry the charge always. So, that is why they are not that stable, they become unstable, the lyophilic colloids. Example for the lyophobic colloids are gum solution, okay, egg albumin and starch solution. Okay. For lyophobic colloids, example is gold sol, arsenic sol, etc. They are examples of lyophobic colloids. Next, we will go for the applications of colloids. Before going for applications, let us see a few properties of colloids that is relevant here, though not in a syllabus strictly, but these are relevant. Colloids are the dispersed colloids are particle size varies, the particle diameter varies from 1 to 1000 nanometers. Okay, 1 to 1000 nanometers. It ranges between 1 to 1000 nanometers. They are very small. They are heterogeneous systems. Colloids are heterogeneous systems. All particles of all the colloids you have, the smaller proportion particles are called as dispersed phase. The larger proportion component is called as dispersion medium. Both together, dispersion medium and dispersed phase, they are together called as colloids. Okay, colloids are heterogeneous in nature. Okay, we cannot say the colloid particles scatter light. We can see the scattering of light by the collider particles. This scattering of light you can easily observe if you watch from the light path at right angles. Okay, if you watch light path from the right angles of a colloidal system, okay, if you keep your eye vision to the right angles of path of light through the colloid, you can see certain particles moving in the colloidal system, right? Certain particles keep on moving. How much ever time you watch, you can see the particles sparkling here and there, moving here and there, hectic movement is there. Okay, you can see that this is actually what we are seeing is not the particles themselves. The particles are too minute to be seen by naked eye. But what we are observing is the light scattered by these colloidal particles. Light scattered by these colloidal particles. Okay, so colloidal particles, they scatter light. This phenomena of scattering of light by colloidal particles, which can be observed at right angles to the path of light, that is called as Tyndall effect. And this movement of these colloidal particles, they always keep on moving. This is called as Brownian motion. It is called as Brownian motion. In a solids, particles are immobile mostly, but in the case of liquids and gases, particles will keep on moving because of the thermal energy. They always have kinetic energy because of this movement. This movement is called as Brownian motion. Okay, Brownian motion. These are so colloids, they carry all of the particles carry identical charge. The dispersion medium carries equal and opposite charge. Whenever the charge is neutralized, they come together to form larger aggregates, and the solid particles or dispersed phase particles will precipitate down. This principle is made use of in the applications of colloids. Okay, applications of colloids. One is in the food and medicine field. Many milk products like cheese, cream, butter, they are all colloids. Okay, they are all colloids, colloidal in nature. Your ice cream is a colloid, your cheese is colloid, milk itself is an emulsion, it's a colloid. Okay, so many foods, the tonics we drink, they are also colloid. Many medicines are emulsions, and many antibiotics like penicillin, tetracycline, they are all given in the form of colloidal soles. They are all injected. Because of their minute size, the colloidal sites are particularly useful because they can mix in the body, they can be taken up by the body very easily. Okay, so that is why the medicines, everything they are given, they are most of the medicines are in the colloid form itself. Okay, then water purification. See, in the water purification, even if you filter the water, we leave the water for some time, okay, in huge tanks, especially in the municipal treatment of water, municipality which supplies water, huge quantities of water to the throughout the for the urban population. Okay, they pump water into huge tanks and leave it unattended for some time. Okay, undisturbed for some time. So all the most of the solid particles, large and medium sized and even minute sized particles will settle down at the bottom. This process we call as sedimentation. The upper layers of water is taken out. Okay, and even if even after that also, after sedimentation also, very minute particles, minute solid particles will remain in the water. They keep on floating. How much ever time we leave the water undisturbed, they will not settle down. They will never settle down. They are very minute, of colloidal dimensions. So to make them settle down, that is not useful for drinking purpose. It cannot be used. It's not potable. Okay, it cannot be used for drinking purpose. So remove these colloidal particles of these colloidal dimensions from water to make it potable. Electrolytes like potassium alum, ferric chloride, etc. are added to the water, and water is shaken well. See, these are electrolytes. Okay, alum and this ferric salts, they are all electrolytes. What they do is, we have just learned that all particles of distributed phase, dispersed phase, they carry identical charge. So when these electrolytes are added to the water, these electrolytes will neutralize the charge present on the dispersed phase particles. They neutralize the charge present on the dispersed phase particles. So once the charge is neutralized, they will settle down, they will come together and form larger aggregates. Because of that, they will settle down at the bottom of the container. Okay, so the minute colloidal impurities are removed from the water. Okay, that's how water is purified. Later water is filtered and sterilized and supplied. Okay, next sewage disposal. Charged colloidal particles in sewage can be removed by the process of electrophoresis. Okay, say sewage also consists of very minute particles, minute sized particles which cannot be removed by filtration. Even after filtration also they will remain there. After sedimentation or filtration also they will remain there because the particle size is very small. So to remove these particles, what is done is electrophoresis. Electrophoresis is done. This electrophoresis, during this process, the sewage water is sent through electrodes at a very high voltage. Okay, which results, these electrodes which are maintained at a high voltage, they neutralize the charge present on the colloidal particles present in the sewage. Once the charge is neutralized, these particles will come together and form into larger aggregates, and the same story repeats, that is they will settle down at the bottom, they will coagulate. Okay. So, charged colloidal particles in sewage can be removed by electrophoresis, which results in the coagulation of the particles, which can be subsequently filtered, and sewage water can be depolluted. Pollution can be removed from the sewage water. This is one of the applications of colloids. Next, precipitation of smoke. Say, human life, modern human life, we cannot expect think of without industries. Industries release lots of smoke into the air, lots of smoke. This smoke contains many harmful chemicals, solid particles, which if they are released into the atmosphere, they are highly harmful to us, okay, they spoil our health. If we can remove, if there is a process by which we can remove these solid particles from the smoke, we can send out harmless particle free gases into the atmosphere, which will be safe. Okay. So, what they do is, in the smoke mostly carbon particles will be there, because carbon is burnt to produce smoke, which process produces smoke. Okay. These carbon particles usually carry negative charge. So, this smoke is passed through a chamber. Okay. So, smoke is passed through a chamber which contains a number of metal plates attached to a metal wire. A number of metal plates are attached to a metal wire, which will hang in the chamber, and smoke will come from the bottom to the top. It will float to the top. Okay. This metal plates and metal wire, they are connected to, they are maintained at a very high voltage, around 30,000 volts. This is called as a electrostatic precipitator. Okay, Cotterell electrostatic precipitator. As the smoke particles come into contact with these electrodes, okay, these metal plates at high voltage, the charge present on these particles, the charge present on these smoke particles, carbon particles will be neutralized, and once it is neutralized, they will come together and form larger aggregates and will settle down at the bottom. The particle free gases can be liberated into the outside without much harm. Let us see the electrostatic precipitator diagram we have here. Okay. Applications of this is the Cotterell electrostatic precipitator. Okay. Here you have got dust. Okay. Here you have got a electric wire, and in between metal plates. Okay. These metal plates are called point electrodes. Gases carrying dust and smoke are fed here, and they will go up, being hot gases, they will go up and pass these plate electrodes and point electrodes, okay, which are maintained at very high voltage. As smoke and dust particles pass through these, okay, electrodes, when they come into the contact with these electrodes, the charge present on these solid particles will be neutralized. They form into larger aggregates, and the solid particles will precipitate down at the bottom. Okay. So, the gases free from the solid particles will be released into the atmosphere, which is usually harmless. Okay. This is about the Cotterell electrostatic precipitator. In the modern industries, these electrostatic precipitators are used to remove the pollution from the smoke. And artificial rain. Okay. Clouds contain water vapor and dust in the form of colloid particles. Okay. Colloidal particles. The water molecules present in the cloud will have electric charge on them. Okay. They carry electric charge on them, and this charge can be neutralized by spraying electrolytes like silver iodide, etc. Okay. Silver iodide is used mostly. Okay. So, for making artificial rains, so the water particles in the cloud which are of like colloid and colloids, water vapor is of colloidal dimensions, okay, in the cloud, they carry, all of them will carry identical charge. To neutralize this charge, electrolytes like silver iodide etc. are sprayed into the clouds in from the planes. So the charge on the water particles will be neutralized, they come together and precipitation occurs. This precipitation is nothing but your rain, okay. Since it is being taking place artificially, okay, we call this as artificial rain, okay. Yeah, this is the last slide we have. So it is also used from the rubber processing also. Rubber is extracted from the latex, okay. This from this latex raw rubber is extracted by adding coagulants like acetic acid or formic acid, okay. In the tannery also, in the tannery means leather processing also, colloids are used, okay. Chromium colloids are used for the tanning purpose, okay. All these are some of the applications of colloids. Today we have seen what are colloids, phase wise how many types of colloids are there, with examples we have seen. We have seen the classification of colloids into lyophilic and lyophobic colloids. We have also seen the classification and examples. We have also seen the characteristics of colloids, and also we have also learned the applications of different colloids, okay.